Hello, YouTube. So, Alex, James, we have breaking news
Yes,
in
we
the
do.
world of wrestling. But before we do
Yes,
that, Alex,
sir.
can you play our intro? As breaking news, as I just said, the WWE announced that the WWE Network is shutting down in March and moving all the content on the WWE Network to the Peacock streaming service. Peacock is the streaming service by NBC Universal. They're going to move all their content, including NXT, NXT UK, their original shows like the Stone Cold Steve Austin podcast, documentaries, and most importantly, at least I think to me and to you guys, are pay-per-views, starting with Fastlane on March 21st. So similar to how they launched the WWE Network 5 or 6 years ago, where they did the pay-per-view before WrestleMania. Now they are doing the pay-per-view before WrestleMania. This time in 2021, the WWE Network is shutting down and it's moving all their services to Peacocks. This is reported earlier today, so I wanted to get your guys' opinion on this. James?
Well, I mean, it was about 8 years ago, I remember, when it first started. And it's not really shutting down. It's more of it's being absorbed.
Right.
I say it's absorbing itself in the Peacock Network.
Right.
Well, the network itself is no more.
Well, yeah, well, it's part of the Peacock Network. It is the network on Peacock, essentially. So it's not an independent. But it's actually, my thought is I think it's a smart move. One, because the pricing is, there's two different pricing tiers now. Well, it's 3 tiers. There's the free tier, there's the $4.99 tier, and then there's the $9.99 tier. And that I think is a good move because one, it's going to open up to a lot more people who don't, not just the hardcore wrestling fans. Now you have people who have the Peacock Network who will be able to watch the product and everything. Maybe they're flipping through it or something like that, and they'll see some, hey, I remember watching wrestling when I was younger. Let me check this out. So I think it's a smart move. It's a very smart move. Plus, it's under a very, and then the structure of it, because it's NBC, Universal, and the structure of it, I think, is much better and more stable compared to when they started, with their own network. So I think it's a smart move myself. I think it's a good move. It's going to open up more masses. Now, if they can just improve the product better, but that's a whole different argument there. But I think it's a good move by them. And they're going to get a lot of money. From what I heard, it's, close
Billion,
to
yep.
nearly $1 billion.
Some outlets are reporting that it's a $1 billion deal over 5 years.
Damn.
Yeah.
So
Dang.
yeah,
Alex?
ultimately I think
Go ahead.
it's a good move. I also think it's a smart move. It's curious because of like all the plans that we had been hearing about, kind of speculated on over the past, I want to say the past few months to a year or so, in terms of what content would be coming to the network itself. And to be honest, I think that this transition to it being on Peacock kind of it brings a lot of questions as far as like how much of those plans that they speculated on are even going to continue. The way that it's been worded through various releases on this is that it does look like they are going to be moving most, if not all, of the network content, which includes obviously the pay-per-views, and like a lot of other archives. Like, so that's like the biggest question that I have as someone who's been, like, I've been subscribed to the network since the beginning. Like, so that's the biggest question I have. Is just how much of it is going to be available. It's probably not going to be all at once, so that much I can understand. It's just one of those things. But aside from that part of it, I think ultimately I think it's a good move. It's just going to be interesting to see where they go with this, because one of the things they made note of was that the WWE Network will be available through the Peacock Premium plan. So that's so for the ad version, the one with the ad supported. Well,
that's the $9.99 version for the no
for
ads.
ad supported.
$4.99. $4.99 is
$4.99 with some ad interruption.
So if you don't mind having ads in your content, then you'll actually be getting a cheaper deal on watching WWE Network programming on top of all the other stuff that's going to be on Peacock. So that's pretty cool in itself. So it'll just be curious to see how they actually go with this. We were talking about this a little bit before we started recording. Obviously, the night that the day we're talking about this, they're about to have Monday Night Raw. There's a good chance they'll be hyping this up. It'll be curious to see how much they hype it up.
Of course.
They'll
Yeah.
definitely be hyping up for next months.
I think.
Like, that's not
Yeah.
doubt.
Oh yeah, no, this is a.
Like, this is
oh
a
yeah,
done
no, this is
deal.
a
Like,
done
this is not
deal.
in
Yeah,
doubt.
No, deal's
I
done.
get that. I do have the other question that's been on my mind since I heard about it this morning, is will this finally resolve an issue that they've had with Raw being available to watch the next day in full? Because on the previous version
Yes.
of on the version of the network that we have now, because of licensing deals with USA Network, they have to wait 30 days to put Raw in full on the WWE Network, and well, yeah, it's the same thing with SmackDown. The reason I say Raw is because USA Network is through NBC Universal. That's the reason that's
Universal.
that
Yeah,
TV
so this
deal
should
versus the Fox TV
Well, yeah,
deal.
NBC
this should
Universal
free that
does
up.
own a number of channels, including the USA Network.
Yeah,
as
so this should
opposed
free
to
that up.
as
This should
opposed
free
to
if
being
that
on Hulu the next day, where it's like the 90-minute version. Though you could argue that 90 minutes of Raw is all you need, anyways.
That's the better version.
Yeah, well, I agree with Chris though. That is the
Okay,
better version.
that's fair
I hate
enough.
to say it, but
I'm just curious.
the next day
Yeah, I guess
version
I'm just
is
more than
probably
anything,
the
I'm
better
just curious to
version
see
of it.
what that means for that part of it. So
No, yeah, it's going to be available next day because they're on the Peacock Network.
yeah, we don't
because
know.
We don't know if it's going
They-
to be available next
that's
day.
not
It
mentioned.
gets
I
licensed
assume. Well, here's
different.
my assumption. My assumption is
Yeah.
no. I'll give you my assumption.
Well,
is
I don't want to say
because-
that because we're
Yeah,
doing
no.
news and it's not
So,
confirmed that
yeah.
that's going to
Well,
happen.
yeah. Let's say my opinion is the way it looks from the deal and everything. I believe it will be available the next day on the Peacock Network now because they don't have that problem now because now it's absorbed into
Right, that's
NBC,
kind of my thinking as well. It would just be a matter of seeing what they actually announce.
which also makes sense because NBC has already announced they're shutting
Yeah,
down
that's
their
actually
sports
true
network.
too.
So
Yeah.
I think that's probably the reason why they could absorb the WWE now because that's where they can get the sports here because it's going to be I think Peacock is going to be like HBO Max has their hubs.
Right,
If
yeah.
you have HBO Max,
They have like the
probably
DC
people know
universe and
Yeah.
they have the different hubs. DC Universe hub,
that's a
the
good point,
Cartoon
yeah.
Network hub. So you can see Peacock going to have like WWE hub.
Yeah. So
all
yeah,
the wrestling
sorry,
content.
yeah, so
all the wrestling content.
for all the joking involved with that, it is curious to see how they would handle that. But yeah, ultimately, I think it's
And I think it's the move ultimately made because if you look at the streaming service, it's streaming wars, you could say, well, in the industry, streaming wars, Netflix is right now top tier right now in Netflix. And all the other ones are struggling right now to catch up to Netflix. And you have like, Disney Plus. And I know Hulu is under that banner, that Disney Plus banner, Disney banner. You have HBO Max, you have CBS, which I think the CBS is crushed now. I think they're going to become Paramount or something now, I believe.
It's the Paramount Network.
Now it's going to be the Paramount Network. So Peacock need a way to try to catch up. I think getting this is actually a really good move because they are going to get now those WWE, the wrestling fans that, maybe not even the hardcore fans, but also going to get the casual fans to come over there who maybe have the network and watch just for the pay-per-views and everything like that. And it still doesn't stop people ordering pay-per-views regularly.
Yeah,
it's
the traditional pay-per-view method still very much a thing.
But I think Peacock did this move to NBC Universal did this move to try to get a leg up in the streaming wars that's been going on. So I think it's a good move strategy.
All right. I am very concerned by this actually as a wrestling fan for a couple of reasons. So the first thing that came to mind for me is the ESPN Plus model. So I don't know how familiar with ESPN Plus.
I have.
But ESPN Plus, you pay a small subscription fee each month for ESPN Plus. But if you still want big events, so UFC does this through the ESPN Plus, you still have to pay $40 for the next UFC card, even though you get a number of stuff for the lower. I think it's like $5.99 a month for ESPN Plus, something like that. That with that model and the fact that model works, that worries me that under a company like NBC, before you jump in, that we could see a transition to that model. So I'm actually I was the original report didn't mention about pay-per-views, but now after subsequent reading it did. So that makes me feel a little bit better. I'm still worried about that in terms of what's pay-per-views going to cost us in the future, because ESPN has shown that people are willing to pay for that. And so has the BR Live, that crowd. you can buy pay-per-view. That worries me as a fan of WWE, that, okay, this is going to increase our costs later. I'm also worried about, because, like Fox has SmackDown. We're not going to see SmackDown on Peacock because Fox and NBC are rivals, even though they have the deals in a way that it was different before. Right now, we don't see SmackDown for 30 days on the network.
Right.
And you get next day on Hulu, and it's like an hour and a half. Little concern there. I also wonder if this disincentivizes WWE from making more content, because Peacock buys them. The pay-per-views themselves are worth, the price of admission. And we've seen some great things from WWE Studios in terms of like the 24 series, the 365 series, those documentaries. There was no word on what happens to those types of series, but I think that's probably one of the biggest losses we'll probably see is in original programming. I think it'll probably carry over what's there, but I think we'll lose original programming. Finally, I didn't see a mention about this in all. What happens to the archives? So WWE has literally 30 years of archives on the network currently. And that not just Monday Night Raw, but like, the territory wrestlings that they acquired, WCW, ECW episodes. Is Peacock going to be willing to host all that content? Because
yes,
one thing that matters is having all that large library that costs Peacock money, more than just the $1 billion that they're paying for or whatever it ends up being. It's the reason that Netflix constantly purges stuff off their rules, because it costs money to have it on your platform. And this is why, Netflix will cancel popular things after 3 or 4 seasons, because once you've already bought into Netflix, well, there's no sense of servicing you anymore. So that's why popular shows constantly get the axe early. Now, obviously, WWE is different because it's episodic television, it's weekly. But I fear that we'll see a dwindling of the backlog. We'll see a dwindling of original programming because of this move. Now, that's not to say that lots of people watch those things. Like, to be honest, I don't turn on the network for anything but the pay-per-views myself.
I can watch
or for NXT UK. I also turn on the network for occasionally. Hopefully that'll remain. I don't see why that wouldn't. But for the fans who do like to go back and watch older stuff, I fear that NBC is not going to see the value in that, and we'll lose a lot of those archives.
No, I can understand your fears.
Yeah.
I don't.
And then the ESPN pay-per-view model, I think, is my biggest fear. Is we might see.
I don't think they're going that. I don't think they're going that route. I don't see them going that way. The ESPN reason why they're doing that with the UFC model is it's a different beast in the WWE, and ESPN is the exclusive home now, so they can go that route and say, "Oh, just go that way." But I don't see the Peacock getting rid of that archive, because one of the things that it is extra content. It's content that they need.
It is content, but it costs money to have that content.
Well, yeah, I know it does. But the Peacock network, I'll be honest with you, does have great shows, but it's only the shows under NBC Universal. And because that HBO, like I said, HBO Max and the other things have their shows too. And some of the shows that NBC doesn't own, that is on HBO Max. So NBC doesn't have some of the things that they would love to show on there.
Sure.
Everything.
And what I'm saying,
I think the archives is going to help boost their content.
Archives don't bring in subscribers, and that's
I think it will. No, I think
that's why like Netflix gets rid of their archives all the time. That's why Hulu does the same thing.
But here's the thing: they can rotate it. But
they can rotate it. But I mean,
I think they might go that route. I think
that could happen. What I was saying is that archives don't bring in new subscribers, so at some point there's going to be a sunken cost.
Well, I think rotation.
And I think that sunken cost means that archives will be,
they can rotate it. I think they're going to rotate. I think they go do this every couple of months. Maybe. They bring in more stuff, and I think the original programming is going to stay. 24 hours, the beyond the lights, the things like that. I think they're going to keep doing that, because they still, they may not have their own independent network now, but they're on Peacock. But Peacock is going to ask them, hey, bring some new stuff in. We want you to have new material.
I mean, I'm not sure that's going to happen either. Like, because I think the pay-per-views are really what they're buying here.
But yeah, but other than that, they're probably going to want them to have some, because you can already go on the Peacock network right now, and they do have the Monday Night Wars on there. They do have some of the other stuff that's already there. It's already available right now. I have a Peacock app right now, and I looked down it. This stuff is already available for the Platinum and everything. So they incorporated that.
To wrap this up, bottom line, the both of you and me, On March 21st, when the WWE Network shifts over to Peacock, are you buying it?
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
Buying it?
100%.
It's going to be the same. I see it as a bonus.
I'm buying in too, but obviously of course, right? Because I want the pay-per-views. Like that's
Well,
what
I
I
want
bought the network
pay-per-views,
for in the
one.
first place.
2, I do like some of the shows that are on Peacock. They have some great shows there. And it's just, I think it's an added bonus. I think it's going to be beneficial. Now, your concerns are valid. Yes.
Right, and I
Those
wanted to
are
bring them up
valid
for
concerns.
the purpose of this video, but I'm bottom lining it so we can.
Yeah.
You know.
Bottom line, I'm going to buy
Bottom line, you're buying it.
Even
okay.
if it's $4.99. Honest with you, I kind of like the $4.99 model too.
Honestly, I'm gonna do the $9.99.
I'll probably do
anyway.
$9.99, but I was glad I have that option of $4.99.
Yeah.
It's good to have an option.
All right. So bottom line, our folks down in the interwebs on YouTube, all that stuff. WWE Network is moving to Peacock on March 21st. I think it is. I may not have the date right. Alex may have to edit that in post. But till next time, we are live Thursdays on Twitch at Power to the Smarks. And you can check us here on YouTube to see any more news videos, reactions, that kind of thing. I'm Chris. That's Alex. That's James. We're all from OPW Live. We'll see you next time.
See you guys.